What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Martian and Ozzy podcast. This week, we are back for the last pay per view of 2021, UFC 269, headlined by Charles Oliveira versus Dustin Poirier going down. Huge 15 fight card, back to back weeks. We're back with another podcast. How we doing this week, Ozzy?
For me, I definitely say this week I've been watching just like you said, 15 fight card, just so much MMA between that, this continuous, week over week. I've got a friend of mine who's fighting this week who I've been doing some scouting for too. So, and then coming off a little bit of a rough week overall, first one in a while, so was probably due for it. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward a little bit to this break that we have coming up. But pay-per-view cards are always something to look forward to, and I'm really looking for. I've always enjoyed the lightweight division, so I like that's finishing off the pay-per-view slate this year.
Yeah, just a brief recap of last week. I lost 2 units in official track bets. I thought we had a lot of, confident leans before the fight. I had almost 10 units risked in action. It just didn't really work out. A few of our dogs didn't really come through for us. But it was still, a good fight card. Still, I think 6 dogs won. Obviously, the greatest of all time, Jose Aldo, turned back the clock once again, putting in another great performance. So it was still a good card, even though, the best didn't go our way. And we're going to, pick up the pieces and move on this week. Solid 15 fights. Tough fight to bet from a money line perspective. But I'm sure we'll still find some bets that we like. And, in terms of quality fights, I mean, from Munoz Cruz up, I mean, we have 6 incredible fights in a row, not counting Nunes versus Pena. But I mean, there's some really, really good fights in this card, and it's going to be fun to break these down.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts before you want to get started? Well, Ozzy's got a new microphone, so let us know how you think that sounds in the
Yeah.
comments.
Yeah, hopefully it sounds good. Yeah, and just for me, just always staying accountable was down just over 7 units last week. I think the biggest regret is Mickey Gall. I tried to reach people around him to maybe suggest a grappling based game plan, but didn't work out, and just a bad approach, I think, for him overall there. And then I think on the prop side of things, just got a little bit burned. But yeah, overall this week, I think some of the stuff has been pretty interesting with that Dominic Cruz DC little spat. Overall, I know I've kind of told you a bit of how I think about the pairings and the commentators, and I think it kind of permeates into a lot of other aspects of people in the forefront, taking credit or being the face of something when maybe not putting in as much time, accountability, like Dominic Cruz was saying, and yeah, and just some incongruent kind of stuff, like that. You have had all the things with like DraftKings this week, the CEO saying they don't want winners, and things like that. So kind of just trying to move everything, I think, a little bit behind the curtain, where the people that are really doing putting in the work are either not getting the recognition, or they're kind of they push up to the top, people that are, whether it be good looking, whatever it is. So I think how betting and all these things and content is going is in that way and fashion. I think people, or consumers, need to, and us as well, everyone needs to always try and push to the forefront the doers, and hold yourself accountable overall always, because the results definitely do matter.
Yeah, a lot going on this week in the world of, MMA drama, Twitter stuff, sports betting stuff. Maybe we'll have to do like a recap podcast at the end of the year, Ozzy. We'll
Maybe,
let
yeah.
if people are interested in hearing maybe some wrap up thoughts, and that could be a good idea for a brief little conclusion to the year.
Yeah, but let's get into this card. I don't want to keep people too long, obviously, since we have these 15 fights. But yeah, let's take it away from here.
Yeah, we'll try to keep a few of these prelims on the brief side, and save the heavy analysis for the good fight. So starting things off, women's flyweight division, you have Jillian Robertson -400, Priscilla Cachoeira +300. Extremely binary fight. I think everyone knows striker versus grappler matchup. Um, Robertson, obviously the much more functional fighter, better resume, and she actually does have a pretty decent top game, one of the better women's grapplers. And Cachoeira has been taken down, put on her back lots and lots of times, looks really bad off of her back. And Gina Mazzani was getting her down really easy with those takedowns. And Robertson should do the same, but the difference is Robertson actually has a much better top game. She can pass guard, land ground and pound, go for submissions, and she should really be able to find the finish or win the 30-27 decision. I think Robertson can win TKO, sub, or decision, so it's kind of tricky to play things from a prop perspective. The under is at -150 here. Extremely rare to see a women's under that widely priced, but it's probably on the accurate side. I think a finish here is extremely likely, and I'll pass this one over to Ozzy now.
Yeah, so I think I echo a lot of those sentiments that you put out there. Cachoeira, she basically has hacked or not hacked her. She just fights to her strengths, where she knows she could take a punch, and she just kind of keeps her chin in the air, wings, hooks from both sides, and looks to lay damage out there. Jillian has some of that kind of like timid energy sometimes if the fight does get a little bit grimy and you are hitting her, but she has like she's able to hit some of these angles on like single legs, and kind of come around, tap, ankle pick like the backside leg, and be able to consolidate position on top. So I think that's probably what's going to happen here. She's gonna wrap up a single, get Cachoeira down, out hustler her, especially in the first like 5 minutes, and get a few good spots. And I would favor her to find a submission here at some point, or I could see some ground and pound from like a mounted position after Cachoeira has kind of tired herself out a little bit. But I can't invest on either side, or take the under here, because just like it's a fight between two girls that they could, I guess, maybe like cancel each other out, where Cachoeira is maybe like trying to hold the center and not throw as much, so Jillian can hit some of these takedowns. But yeah, I definitely favor Jillian here for sure.
Last thing I'll say is, as goofy as it sounds, Robertson -400 is probably value. I cap her closer to 86%. So you want to combine Robertson -400 with Cachoeira knockout +800. I think that's a guaranteed way to make money for
Don't do
a
that.
real stupid bet.
Don't
But
do that. Don't do
no,
that.
no, no. We'll get the man started with the win. So moving things along. Men's bantamweight division, pretty fun fight here. We got Randy Costa -170 taking on Tony Kelly +145. Battle of the anti-vaxxers here. This should be an interesting matchup. You can start this one off, Ozzy.
Sure, yeah. So, Kelly's coming back. I think he had a somewhat of a major surgery that he's coming back from. I know he's with Andrea Lee now, so I think because of that, his training situation might have been a bit different here. We haven't seen,
For sure,
we
better. I mean, if
yeah,
you're
yeah.
training with Andrea Lee, you are automatically level up.
Yeah, so they, I think, a wave of money a bit has been coming in on the Tony Kelly side. I understand it. I think there a spot that I'm looking at a little bit more is the over here, just because even though Tony Kelly did get stunned a little bit by Kai Kamaka, who is not known as a power striker, he does have some tools to slow a fight down a bit. I do think he has a grappling advantage over Randy Costa, and I think Costa, after losing that fight to Yanez, I mean, both of his losses in the UFC were basically him tiring out a bit, and especially that Yanez fight. I would imagine he comes out here a little bit more reserved and conserved. Not that reserved, because it is Randy Costa at the end of the day, but just not looking to put out like 100 or 120 strikes like he did in that Yanez fight. And Kelly is a pretty tall fighter as well, so I think that the jab of Costa won't be landing as much. And for as good as Yanez is, he is okay with getting hit a bit too much early on. And I think that that Kelly knows Costa slows down. I think he will look to neutralize that pace a bit. So I think at that -130 number, the over could be a good spot. I would assume we could probably see some clinching here from the Tony Kelly side, and to drag this fight out. And I mean, I was considering a play on Tony Kelly if that line at like +170 would hold, but once you get under that +150 number, I'm not as enthused, because I just not sure his chin is gonna hold up, and that injury that I mentioned plays a role here. But I think is something I still will consider. I'll look into it, but I do like the over here at that short price for two bantamweights.
Yeah, I think the formula for betting Costa fights is just, wait a few minutes and look to live bet against him, because the guy does start extremely fast. He is, pretty almost entirely offensive minded. and not much of a grappler, not much defense coming back on his end. So he's gonna probably outstrike Tony Kelly here for the first few minutes. He's got those head kicks that he spams. He's got that great jab, and Kelly's probably gonna feel the speed, feel the power for a little bit. But if Kelly is still standing and in the fight after 3 or 4 minutes, I mean, Costa has consistently slowing down past that 4 or 5 minute mark. Only been in round two once, I think, and he lost that fight. So, I mean, it's clear as day that this guy doesn't have proven cardio. And Tony Kelly took that Kai Kamaka fight on short notice, up a weight class, and was able to build as that fight went on. He got hit early on, like Ozzy said, was able to adapt and make rounds 2 and 3 really, really close there between Kamaka. So, I think that's a great sign for this fight. If he can withstand that early storm from Costa, there's a great chance he wins round 2 and 3, possibly finds a finish here. Not so sure I'm interested in the over under just because Costa's fights are just, they are constantly at under pacing. The guy just only knows one speed. So it is a good chance that this fight finishes under that. But I hope it doesn't. I hope it goes over because that I think is better for Kelly. And I think just look to live bet Tony Kelly here. He should be +2, 300 after a few minutes. And he's got a real good chance to win the fight later. Should be definitely the better grappler and, has some good clinch offense as well. And I really think he could take over rounds 2 and 3 here. So I'll pick Kelly straight up. And I just think you should pass on the pre-fight live bet and wait for the live bet. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So that's gonna go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll say, Costa fight has never gone over 1.5 rounds. So if you like a good sweaty bet, though, try that out. And eventually, you have to kind of see this guy in a later fight, and just because his opponents have to adapt and try to bring that out of him. But yeah, definitely a sweaty play for sure.
Pretty fun matchup though. I can't imagine that one being boring. Moving along to the featherweight division, we have Ryan Hall as the -200 favorite, Derek Minner +170. And I think right off the bat, I'll say that Hall at -200 just doesn't make much sense to me. The guy's game is well known. He keeps distance on the feet, throws a lot of spinning kicks and long rangy kicks, kind of karate style. And then he's constantly, flopping to his back for the guard pulls, for the leg locks. And when he has, an opponent who knows what the game plan is, who is athletic enough to avoid some of those, kind of telegraphed entries to the leg locks, like Topuria could make it look easy. Just, pass that guard easily, land a few hammer fists, and Hall's chin didn't really withstand that too much there. So I think that something similar could happen here. Obviously, Derek Minner, a very unreliable fighter, typically gasses out if he can't get the win early on, and is kind of known for diving his way into submissions. The Herbert Burns fight, excuse me, was doing well early in that fight and dove right into a triangle choke there. And something could happen along the lines here where he's doing well in the fight, avoiding the submission, but then just gets tangled up in that leg lock exchange. But the striking advantage, I think, goes to Minner. I think Minner could potentially get some top position time here. And, if he's able to avoid that leg lock, he can get on top. He lands good ground and pound. You saw that versus Darren Elkins. He almost TKO'd Darren Elkins in round one. Darren Elkins is pretty much impossible to knock out, but I mean, he was on top, landing good ground and pound from good positions there. And if he gets in those same positions against Hall, I think Hall could, shell up and not really want to fight anymore. So -200 for a guy who likes, pulling guard and going for leg locks, I just don't think is the move. It's just a matter of, do you want to trust a bet on Minner? This is not a smart, trustworthy guy. So, putting your money on him is a risky endeavor, but, maybe Ozzy can shed some light into some of the more.
I'll tell you,
you
do not want to invest in Derek Minner. Okay. Derek Minner had a few of those UFC wins, the TJ Laramie fight and a Charles Rosa fight. I mean, in the Charles Rosa fight, at the end of the first round, you see Charles Rosa put him in a leg entanglement, and I'll tell you, Derek Minner did all the wrong moves. For a guy with 22 submission victories, I'm not gonna say perplexing because there's just some guys that they just never really mess around with the leg locks and the heel hooks and all those things. But if a similar position to that happens against Ryan Hall, I would assume he snaps Derek's leg. I mean, Derek Minner literally put himself in what a position would be a leg lace, where all you would have to do is scoop up up that other foot and, I mean, easily rip the guy's leg off. I can't believe Charles Rosa was not able to do that. And overall, just the thing is here, Hall typically he doesn't have as much of the offensive grappling that you want to see. But I mean, I don't think Derek Minner overall in terms of defensive grappling is very good in terms of keeping away from takedowns. Gray Maynard, Darren Elkins, Topuria, even if you go back to his Saul Rogers fight, these are all guys that have much better defensive wrestling, that are much stronger. Some of these guys are former lightweight, or almost all those guys were former lightweights, except for Topuria, and it forces Hall to kind of do some the unorthodox stuff that you see. But overall, I think that he's going to be able to throw the kicks here easily at Derek Minner, and just Derek Minner, he wins fights grappling, so he's going to have I don't think he's going to be able to keep this on the feet or have the desire to overall. So I think they will tangle up, whether it be in the clinch or one of these guys shooting a takedown. And eventually Ryan Hall is going to find his way either to Derek Minner's back, to his leg, or maybe even take the neck and then continue to transition from there. But I'd just be surprised if he lost to Derek Minner. I understand, obviously, I don't think I would want to bet him here on minus 200. But if more Derek Minner money does come in, maybe it'd be worth it to consider in some way. But right now as a straight wager, laying 2-1 obviously is not probably the best, just because Hall has shown that he just tires out a little bit as well. But the thing with Derek Minner is that I just don't think he's going to really want to tangle all that much with him. And I think that Ryan Hall will be able to keep this fight a little bit more on his script, as opposed to the Topuria fight and some of those fights like that where he's running away a little bit more. But yeah, Derek Minner is going to put himself in some precarious situations. I think that Ryan Hall has been training and been focused on getting back in the win column. He doesn't want to be known as the guy that kind of got memed there by Topuria and had a bad UFC run. So I think he'll get back in the winning column with a submission over Derek Minner.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see, Minner diving into a submission here is pretty live. But if you like Hall by sub is plus 150. That's 40%. His money line is 66%. So I don't see how Hall wins a decision or knockout 26% of the time. I think that's too high. So I think if you like Hall, just take the sub prop.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd be surprised to see him holding on to Artem, like how he did with Artem, and holding on to the back and just kind of eking the clock away. I think Derek Minner, if he ends up in a position like that, he'll find a way to give up the submission. So,
but I did pull up that video of the Rosa leg lock, and Minner looked extremely nonchalant in those positions. I mean, Rosa didn't really know what he was doing too much either. But Minner, definitely didn't show urgency or confidence.
Or respect or anything.
Yeah. But
it's you don't know that guy doesn't know how to submit you from there. It's so.
But here's the thing. For all you real ones out there, Alan Belcher was able to train leg locks for 6-8 weeks and be able to defeat Usman Praharis. So if Minner really dedicates, his camp 6-8 weeks to learning how to defend
James
leg
Krause,
locks.
with Gina Mazzani and James Krause, they're not figuring that shit out, dude.
That's true. That's not promising. But if Alan Belcher can do it 15 years ago, I believe Derek Minner can do it. So, moving along to the flyweight division, a really fun fight here. From pay-per-view headliner, title challenger to the Fight Pass prelims, we got Alex Perez taking on Matt Schnell, and the odds are pretty wide here. Perez minus 310, Matt Schnell plus 260. You can start this one off, Ozzy.
Yeah, this is the third time these guys are supposed to fight. I don't know what's been going on with Alex Perez. I heard that he was, looking to get back from after that Figueiredo loss very quickly. But here we are, over over a year later. And, this is an interesting fight between a guy who's kind of like a powerhouse at flyweight. Perez is, he comes in with winging hooks. He, chops the leg down, has a great squeeze when he does get on the neck. That submission over Jordan Espinoza was super impressive. And I think this guy, I think he has some lapses at times overall. but has all the skills, I think, to be ironclad, lockdown top five guy. I would not be surprised at seeing him fight for the title again. And the thing with Matt Schnell is he's shown always that he doesn't respect some of the offense coming back to him. He has fought both at 125 and 135. A number of his wins are those triangles from on bottom that I don't really see happening here. I do think that Alex Perez is a much better grappler. I think on the feet, although Matt Schnell has shown okay volume and and the like, I think he does like that. Bontarin fight was just an awful performance by him. I really didn't understand it at all. I don't know if Schnell might have been psyched out a little bit because of the antics with the weight or what happened there. But that was like just an awful performance by him. It was close to his hometown. He's from Louisiana. That fight was in Houston. I don't know what was going on with him that night. And I think if you look back at that Tyson Nam fight, Tyson Nam just very one-dimensional striker, doesn't really mix it up with light kicks. And Schnell was able to move around him, hit nice angles there. I was on him there at like a near even price. But I think Perez here is able to get that light kick going. I think he's able to push Matt Schnell back. I wouldn't be surprised to see Matt Schnell land a big punch on Perez, at some point, just because Perez is very offensively centric as well, and Matt Schnell does have okay hands. But eventually, I do think that Perez takes Matt Schnell down. I think that he probably passes to some good positions and looks to get off some ground and pound. So I think he's going to have a very, very strong round one. Hopefully, he paces himself. But I would favor him to get the finish here over Matt Schnell. It's just whether it's on the feet, slamming that leg kick, and then finding a big shot with when Schnell looks to counter, or on the ground with a submission or ground and pound. I think Perez is going to be all over him. He's got something to prove here, and Matt Schnell has shown that he just gets finished by these elite guys.
Yeah, I think the price is just about right here. I mean, maybe I would go closer to minus 250 for Perez. The year layoff, the fact that his offense does, pretty heavily rely around that leg kick. If that leg kick, isn't going well for him, then it could be a lot closer than that minus 300 price tag. But Matt Schnell doesn't check leg kicks. Alex Perez, smashed the legs of Emmett-Ige for a TKO in round one there. So it's pretty likely that Perez is going to be attacking those leg kicks here. And then Schnell does have a good submission arsenal. He has multiple subs on his record. So it could be a little dangerous for Perez to get takedowns here, especially, he did lose his last fight, getting arm in guillotine. We kind of talked shit about Chiesa a few weeks ago. I think that was kind of a similar submission where kind of a bad sign for Perez that he was able to get caught with that arm in guillotine. Biggest fight of his career, first round, 2.5 minutes. He got the takedown. And then, it's extremely rare to catch a guillotine from that position. And then he kind of went right into Figueiredo's guard. Just a very rookie mistake.
You're supposed to just, if that guy's in the commit to the guillotine there as he's spinning there, all you have to do is continue to roll and flip under him and kind of just invert the position. And you should either be able to give up top position, go into a scramble, or if you execute it right, come out onto the other side, if you can picture what I'm saying, as the guy rolls, and then you're on the clean side on top, escaping that guillotine. But yeah, it definitely a lapse in judgment there from him.
So that shows a little bit of susceptibility to being subbed. And like I said, Schnell does have a good sub arsenal off of his back. So I think that I'll definitely be passing on minus 310 money line. You got to be thinking of some other way to play this. Perez sub plus 650.
Under is plus like 145, so it gives you exposure to both guys there.
See, plus 115.
I think got hit. It must have been getting. Everything's moving today. But yeah, I did take. That was another total that I did bet. I did take a little bit. Oh yeah, that got hit today, pretty nicely. But yeah, I did take a little bit of that. Because I think it gives you exposure to both sides. And I think these guys are gonna bang for, especially early on.
That's true. Big cage could be a little bit of a detriment. I think if it was small cage, I would like that under a little more. But I think that Perez should cover here. Scrape by covering minus 300. And I think he could possibly submit. So plus 650 for that sub prop on FanDuel, not looking too bad. That's going to move us along to the women's flyweight division, second fight in that division for this card. We have Miranda Maverick taking on Erin Blanchfield-Maverick minus 130, Blanchfield plus 110. two of the youngest fighters on the roster. Both these women, are interesting prospects, but we like one of them a lot more than the other here, and that's Erin Blanchfield. A little bit disappointing that she didn't finish her last fight. It seemed like a lot of finishing opportunities in the round 2-3 versus Alpar, but still a good performance from Blanchfield nonetheless. I think Maverick is the better striker. Definitely a more technical background. She throws some decent punches from that southpaw stance. But Blanchfield's striking is no, slouch either. I think that she's not as technical, but she can, have some moments as well. Um, and Maverick, I think people were thinking that she's some world class striker when she beat up Joe Chua. Then all of a sudden, you saw her, barely outstrike Jillian Robertson the next fight. So um, also with that Jillian Robertson fight, I think round 2 of that fight is really all you need to see, to favor Erin Blanchfield in this matchup, because I did not like the way that the Maverick was reacting to those grappling positions. She seemed a little bit, inexperienced in the jiu-jitsu positions, almost got her back taken there, got taken down once or twice by Robertson. And I know I was saying earlier that Robertson is one of the better female grapplers, but I think that Blanchfield could really be on that same exact level. I'm seeing a lot of, high level grappling from her. Obviously, Henzo Gracie Black Belt has trained with the, in the old Danaher gym for years now. And she can wrestle, she can pass guard, she knows how to land ground and pound, go for submissions. Finishing isn't her strong suit, but I really think she's the better overall grappler than Maverick. And I think that her game plan is going to be to get these takedowns. And I think that Maverick, I'm not sure she's really prepared to deal with these takedowns, these back take attempts. You saw even Macy Barber get her down a few times. And Maverick clearly won that fight against Macy Barber, but still allowed the fight to be close enough for the judges to fuck it up, which is kind of just a bad sign for her career going forward. I think so. I like Blanchfield here. I think she's got the grappling advantage, and I think there's a good chance that she out grapples Maverick this entire fight. So I got Erin at plus money, and I think I'll pick her by decision.
Yeah, so I also like Aaron here overall. I was surprised actually when they had both the fights they set up for Aaron. The Barber fight and then the Maverick fill-in here. I don't know if that makes all that much sense overall, but to get into the style matchup here, Miranda Maverick at heart, she is a grappler overall. I know she has some base in Muay Thai, but overall I think she wants to grapple. I think that her defensive grappling is not the best. I do think she has some good takedowns that she times okay. But once she does get some of these takedowns, I just see a lot of flaws in there that I don't know if they're if they come from her, not being a full-time fighter for a while. She was like studying for a PhD and all those things. But when she's in the clinch, a lot of times, like I said, with a lot of these other girls, she gives up underhooks. She even looks to almost want to go for like a headlock takedown. If you saw that Barber fight, she's like reaching up for Macy's head on a number of occasions there. And I think that if you put her on the back foot in terms of whether it be shooting in on her, countering her, if you look at some of the stand-up that Miranda has to offer, she closes her eyes in exchanges. She throws naked leg kicks. She'll throw these telegraph body kicks that I think Aaron's going to be able to take advantage of. Going to the Erin Blanchfield side, she's fought a number of southpaws in her career, which I like. One of her main training partners, who is I forget her name right now, but she did very well in ADCC trials. She's an MMA fighter for herself in Invicta, and I do think we'll probably see her in the UFC eventually. Is a southpaw as well, and they've been really training on Aaron's wrestling for this fight here. So I think that Aaron maybe I think she'll probably have a little bit of a hard time early on. Maverick is very strong. I think in the clinch, she will be able to defend a bit, but I think once Aaron is able to, or, the strategy goes to getting in on the legs, Barber, a lot of the takedowns that she was trying to do is go to the body lock and these things, which not the best approach, I think, against Miranda. I think when she goes to the legs, maybe hits some of these single legs, high crotches. I think if these wrestling exchanges are extended, I think Aaron's aptitude and, her skill will begin to shine there. And then once this is on the ground, I think Miranda will try and muscle out of some of these positions that Aaron's going to go to lock down on. And she's just a much higher level grappler than Miranda. Even if she ends up on bottom, I think that Aaron is probably one of the only girls that will be able to put together some leg locks which is you don't really see them in the women's game overall. I know for a fact that she is pretty good with that. Last time I told you that we got a heel hook win, so let's see if that is possible here. And then on the feet, I think the volume that Erin puts out, the fact that she goes and is aggressive on the front foot will be to her benefit. But overall, it's a close fight. It's been getting bet down, which is a little bit disappointing. And yeah, so I like Erin here. I think she'll be able to back up Miranda in some points, grow as the fight goes on. And Miranda does have a bit of a slower second and third rounds. So as the fight goes on, I think that Erin pulls away. But Miranda did change up her camp. She's over it in Colorado now. She's training full time, so we could see improvements from her. But I like Erin here at this plus price still. But a lot of the value is for sure getting sucked out now. Erin submission is like plus 1,600. By the way.
That Barber fight was just a few months ago. Camp change. It might be a little bit too soon for her to be taking this matchup. And she's the one taking the fight on short notice too. Maverick. Erin had
much
more
bigger.
time.
She cuts much more weight. Erin, I know, does not cut that much weight. So I think the pace that she comes at with, and this girl just throws hands, man. She's about this life, She is. So I like Erin here. I think
New
she's
Jersey,
a good
New York
prospect.
girl. Yeah, we're bigly behind Erin in this one. That's gonna move us along to middleweight division. We got 1/3 of the way down the card, Ozzy. So 2/3 left. We got Andre Muniz minus 145, Eric Anders plus 125. You can start.
I like this fight. I like this fight. I think this is a cool matchup here. Eric Anders has been just has not lived up as much to his potential. I remember seeing him when he came in that Lyoto fight. I thought that he was gonna be pushed up a lot more and a lot quicker. Had to fight Darren Stewart 2 times, funny enough. And yeah, that last fight, I thought he looked okay overall. But the thing with Eric Anders is, for some reason, in those last 2 fights, I guess maybe it was the fight ready. He really wanted to grapple. I found he would let off punches in some exchanges, but he was really kind of committed to the grappling there. And I think here coming up against Andre Muniz, Muniz does not have great volume on the feet for sure. But I think that Eric Anders wants to close distance overall. And I would assume maybe that game plan maybe could change here, but Andre Muniz, if you were giving him, grappling exchanges, I think that he is going to be able to use the clinch to his advantage more than Anders. Anders was able to kind of blanket Darren Stewart, but some of these guys are most of these guys are not as versed in getting angles and finishing a body lock, getting to the back positioning, dragging guys down as Andre Muniz is. And one opportunity that you give him, he's going to take it and he's going to, capitalize on it. You saw against Jacare how he jumped up on the back and then was able to transition to that armbar with the arm under the armpit there. That's that's not a move that, one, a lot of guys go for, but two, that you get all the time, especially on an ADCC world champion like Jacare. So I think that eventually Andre Muniz is able to have some grappling success here, even though Eric Anders is obviously a beast. They're going to tell you he played for Alabama. He was a star linebacker, all that stuff. But I mean, the grappling is just is like a crazy different level here. And I think that Eric Anders' cardio as well, if it is grappling intense, could wane a bit, and any opportunity for Muniz to capitalize those opportunities will start adding up. Although Muniz does not have the best cardio himself, but some of those takedowns that he was able to time on Jacare, I think that he's growing now as his career goes on. He just turned 31, or he's 31 now, so I think that he's able to time some takedowns here on Eric Anders, get this fight to the ground, and I think it'll be a close fight, but I do see him having some grappling success, and when he does, a finish could come shortly after.
Yeah, so this is a fight, I'm kind of grateful I watched some tape on. And initially, I was leaning towards Anders here, but just rewatching one of his most recent fights kind of got me off of that. Seeing the fight against Darren Stewart, watching him get taken down with that outside body lock trip takedown in round 1, and kind of, he looked like he was going to full guard there. There was only 30 seconds left in the round, but instead of, popping right back up to his feet, he was looking to go full guard, and he was looking to lay on his back versus Darren Stewart, which is just a really bad sign. And if he's laying on his back versus Muniz, he's either going to spend the entire round on his back, or he's going to possibly even get submitted in one round of top position. So Anders should be the better striker here, but the guy is not a reliable volume guy. There's multiple decisions. The Theodoro, the GM3, the Jocko fights all come to mind
You
where
just
his
never fight smart. Never.
yeah, and he
Never.
always makes him close, never puts a stamp on it. I mean, he nearly knocked out Darren Stewart in round one, and then he illegally kneed him, right? Yeah, so
He didn't need to. Yeah, he didn't need
yeah,
to at all. And he didn't
I mean,
even look that upset about it. Like, I don't know if he knew that he was gonna get DQ'd right after, but it looked like he kind of wanted a breather, so he like kneed him in the head. It
yeah, I
was
mean, and
weird.
then
It was
the
like,
fucking ref, I don't get it.
Herb D.
Sometimes Peter Yan knees DQ, but then Anders intentionally DQ knees him in the head, no DQ, it's a no
Okay,
contest. So he
relax.
almost got
I had money on Aaron Anders there. We didn't want him DQ'd there.
but still, he almost went from knocking the guy out in round one to
Yeah,
almost getting disqualified, and then he had a rematch and he won 29-28. Like, he won in like the closest fashion
he
possible. So
needed a takedown. Yeah.
this is a guy who doesn't win fights clearly, and he's also going to be facing an elite jiu-jitsu guy who can put him in bad spots on the ground and possibly finish the fight at any moment. That armbar was absolutely nasty. I mean, I really wonder what Jacare was thinking there. I guess he just wasn't
Yeah.
respecting Muniz's jiu-jitsu, because his arm was in a extremely compromising position.
Mhm.
And I guess Jacare had been grappling 30 years. He just didn't really react to it. But I mean, Muniz took that thing home with him and snapped that arm right in half. Probably put an end to the career of Jacare in MMA. I don't know if he's officially retired. So I'm picking Muniz as well. And hopefully some Anders money comes in. Maybe Muniz gets to like -130.
Yeah, I'd like that.
Sticking with the middleweight division, we got Bruno Silva as the -340 favorite taking on Jordan Wright +275. I mean, this guy at -340 is nuts. We were just betting against him versus Andrew Sanchez. We got extremely close to winning that one, despite it being, a pretty worrisome performance the entire time. It's possible that Andrew Sanchez is fading pretty heavily here, fight to fight, but I know Silva just doesn't really have much skill. This guy is a freak athlete, freak power, but in terms of like real MMA skill, I don't think there's much that we're dealing with. I mean, I've seen the guy get taken down by several opponents. He's not a really good defensive grappler. He doesn't really know how to get off of his back. But when the guy gets on top, he throws vicious ground and pound, and he has hammers for fists. But even his offensive striking, not that good. So the fact that he's -340 here is insane. I know Jordan Wright is kind of a poorly perceived fighter by the market. He's some rich white kid from California whose parents paid for his entire MMA training. So I think he gets a bit of a bad rep, but the dude does have some power. He does come out strong in round one. We saw Jamie Pickett get outstruck for 15 minutes by Tavon Chukwi, never went away. And then Jordan Wright ended that man in 1 minute with a flurry of, knees and punches and Travis Brown elbows. So Wright, is, I'd say, the more skilled fighter. He's definitely not as athletic. He's not as durable. But the guy has some good power of his own. He can throw clinch strikes. He knows how to, leverage a moment to find a finish. And before he got to the UFC, he was winning a lot of fights with his grappling and submitting people. They were low-level fighters, but still, I think that, Wright maybe getting some top time here briefly, maybe possibly getting a back take is on the table here. So I don't think you got to think too hard about this one. Just throw a small bet on Wright. I mean, a small half unit, and just see how it goes, because Silva at over 75% is just whack. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, interesting matchmaking here. I don't know if they're trying to build up Bruno Silva. I don't know if they hate Jordan Wright. I don't know. This is just like I think kind of odd. Bruno Silva has 27 fights overall. Coming into UFC, I wasn't really sure how he was going to stack up, and he's had two straight TKOs, but after being grappled a bit in both of them, as you saw, the thing with Bruno Silva, I think I'll try and keep it short, is a lot of his fights, he incites not a brawl, but he incites like a high variance fight, and he's dependent a little bit on his conditioning and the fact that he hits pretty hard. And while that's good, that also could lead to guys like Jordan Wright, who also are pretty good offensively, but maybe can't take as good of a punch to be able to be in a fight with you there and stun you and get a knockout. So I kind of like Jordan Wright here as a value play overall. I think that the market is maybe valuing or not giving credit to Jordan Wright, thinking that Bruno Silva just going to be able to get him out of there very, very quickly. But Jordan Wright, the thing that was advantageous to Buckley is he was coming forward, cutting off the cage a bit more. Bruno Silva kind of just invites you to move around him, and then he's kind of just doing an all-out berserker attack. I think Jordan Wright will try and pick at him early on, use his kicks more than getting in pocket exchanges. And like you said, he does have a bit of an underrated grappling game that for sure maybe guys like Daniel Cormier won't know right off the bat, and they'll think that the Brazilian guy has a grappling advantage. So I think Jordan Wright here is able to be in this fight. I don't love the play, but like I said, little value play here at this big number, almost 3-1 you're getting here. On a guy who has pretty good conditioning, I think, overall, even though you haven't seen him go to scorecards much, and does have the ability to finish, whether it be on the feet, at range, in the clinch, or on the ground.
And don't bet him yet. Just wait right before the fight. I mean, last card, the amount of favorites that were getting steamed before the fight was just insane. Like every single fight was plus 160, and then 15 minutes later, right before the fight, plus 180, plus 185. I mean, people are just steaming those favorites.
I think that might have had something to do with that main card, or I think maybe the whole prelims up all being on ESPN. I've been trying to keep track of that a little bit when some of these fights are all on ESPN and all in front of eyes, and obviously this one's a pay-per-view. Sometimes you do see late action a lot like that, which is kind of interesting.
And it's gonna move us along. Last, okay fight, and then we move on to some elite fights back to back to back. So we got heavyweight division, Augusto Sakai taking on Tai-Tuivasa. Near pick'em. This one, let's see, we got Tai-Tuivasa minus 115, Sakai minus 105. You start this one off, right?
Yeah. So heavyweight fight here, two very, very big boys. Augusto Sakai coming off that fight against Rosenstrike, where just got ended right there at the end of that first round. But that fight was like a pick'em fight as well. I think if I'm being correct, or a slight plus price on Sakai. I think this is gonna be a fight that you'll kind of know the pace early on, how it's gonna go. I don't think that Sakai has a very bad chin overall. I think that he is a little bit more of the cleaner, better striker overall. Tuivasa does bring some interesting speed to the heavyweight division. He knows that. He uses it well. He's been adding the kicks to his game as well. But I don't trust his conditioning as much and his ability in kind of like a tougher fight, let's just say. He is coming off of wins over Greg Hardy and what's the other guy's name? Hunsucker.
Hunsucker.
Yeah, Hunsucker. So not the best competition there.
Can't forget Struve.
Yeah, and Struve. Greg Hardy, he got hit with that punch in his eye socket or something like that. He basically gave up. He wasn't even really knocked out, to be honest with you. He could have kept fighting. Augusto Sakai, though, I think pretty clean striker overall. Keeps his distance much better. I think he won't let Tuivasa walk him down as much. This isn't a big cage as well. So I think that Tuivasa is going to struggle a bit more with Sakai at range here. So I'm leaning that towards possibly betting Sakai here. I'm interested to see if I could get maybe a plus number on him, because I do see some people that like Tuivasa, but I don't trust them nearly as much as I do Sakai. Sakai can get a little bit timid or just not do as much, like in that but what's that other AKA guy? Starts with an I or whatever. That fight, he didn't do as much as he could. It was like a split decision there. I know people like the over here, but I don't like paying juice for heavyweight overs. I saw you like it as well, and your history with heavyweight over 1.5. So I don't know why you're setting yourself up for that. So I'll pass. I'll swerve that one. I'll stay away from that one. And but I do think that it is likely to go a little bit later, because Sakai does keep his range a little bit more. He works into the fight more, and I do think that Tuivasa is going to respect his striking a bit more than he did like Greg Hardy's and Hunsucker's.
Yeah, so I mean, looking at Sakai's last fight, on 5 times the line closed the same is what it is now, but Rosenstrike was -115 instead of Tai
Yeah.
Tuivasa. I mean, it wasn't a good performance from Sakai, but it's not like we learned a whole lot about him. He got hit with, a combination at the end of the round, and he got knocked out stiff. So I mean, we didn't learn a whole lot there, and now we're seeing Tai Tuivasa, the guy who is, just not a high level fighter at all. I mean, this guy is basically an Australian like bar fighter who has been, training a little bit. Um, but obviously very likable personality, and I think that's why you're seeing, this line be closer than it is. I think that uh you're getting some fan favoritism in this line, and I think
Now
Sakai should
poised, maybe.
Sakai
Now
Sakai
poised.
should be closer to like -130, honestly. I mean, all the guys that Sakai's lost to Tuivasa would get smoked by him too. Sakai had a pretty close fight with Ivanov that he was able to steal with a cage grab, while Tuivasa was pretty cleanly beaten by Ivanov. Both guys got robbery victories over Andrei Arlovsky. And I just think Sakai is more functional. It could be a swing fest. It could be the first guy that lands the calf kick is going to win the fight via knockout in round one. But I just think the way these two match up, it does seem like an over 1.5. It does seem like a goes the distance type of fight. So, like as you said, I have a bad record with these, but I'll pick this one to go over 1.5 anyway. And Sakai might honestly be worth a money line bet. So that's going to bring us to the first elite fight on this card of many. The fact that this is on the prelims is insane. Probably one of the highest level fights that ever take place on the UFC prelims. We got Pedro Munhoz, slight favorite, -115. Dominic Cruz, -105 on the comeback. And they're giving Cruz a big step up. He came back, bounced back well against Casey Kenny in his last fight, won that fight pretty clearly. Was able to, avoid the leg kicks in that fight, struggled really badly with the leg kicks against Henry Cejudo. I think part of what Cejudo's success there was kind of just catching Cruz off guard with them. Cejudo wasn't much of a leg kicker. He was actually the one getting his leg kicked by Marlon Moraes a lot. And then, kind of took a page out of his book and decided to start implementing them. And, they were really effective against Cruz in that fight. And now he's got a leg kicker in front of him in Pedro Munhoz, but he's more of a predictable leg kicker. I think Cruz will be a lot more prepared for them in terms of his game plan, his mentality going into this fight. And I think that his in and out movement, his switching stances will help him avoid the leg kicks of Munhoz. I don't think that Munhoz is going to be smashed in the legs as easily as Cruz did. But the way that I saw Cruz initiating the exchanges versus Casey Kenny, I really didn't like. He's always got that in and out style where he's outside of range, and then he comes in with those looping overhand punches at times. And he did previously have really good defense, really good reaction time. Was a pretty good athlete for MMA, but years off, not much activity, the injuries, you're seeing his defensive reaction, his speed not be the same as it is. And I thought the exchanges versus Casey Kenny were pretty reckless. Casey Kenny's not much of a hard hitter, so he was able to get away with a lot of the exchanges there. But Munhoz, I think, is going to be a bit of a different animal. Munhoz is going to be, ripping the body with those left hooks, coming upstairs with the punches like he did versus Jimmy Rivera. And I think that Munhoz is going to have a little more success than Casey Kenny did in those exchanges. And I'm going to be picking Pedro Munhoz to edge a close decision here. Another thing about that Cruz fight versus Kenny, he was able to get some takedowns, some brief top time there. But Munhoz, one of the most notoriously hard guys to hold down. He's got a nasty guillotine, good scramble game. So I don't think Cruz is going to be able to get much top time. And Cruz, also not known as much of a hitter. Munhoz known to be one of the most durable guys, ever in MMA. So I don't think the Cruz getting wrestling time or getting a knockout is extremely live here. So if Cruz wants to win, it's got to be by decision. And I just think that if you like Cruz, just take him +150 by decision. I like Munhoz no scorecards here. I was able to find that -150 on DraftKings, so I like that for a play. So I'll be siding with Munhoz here to edge a close 29-28.
Yeah, awesome fight here. I love that it's pick and price as well. You have people feel very strongly on both sides for sure. Which I can see definitely. I think Dominic Cruz traditionally against a guy like Pedro Munhoz, style wise, in my opinion, I think is very good. It's a very good fight for Dominic Cruz. I think the pace of this fight Mm, just me kind of just like estimating out is going to be Cruz doing his thing, dancing around, moving a lot, and I think Pedro Munoz is going to be patient here because he should feel, I would think, if I'm in his corner, that hey, if this when this guy gets close to you, that's when you're chopping away. You're, trying to catch him with overhand or for a big hook. And I think that in the Casey Kenny fight, you saw once Casey Kenny was pursuing Dominic Cruz, he was kind of looking a little dumb. He was getting, he was missing a lot, and kind of giving those opportunities for Cruz to hit those takedowns and counter. I think that some of those exchanges that you mentioned, that how he was opening up, was a little bit later in the fight, like when he was looking to score more, and I think he recognized that, hey man, this is a close fight. I need to, maybe take a little bit more risk overall. And, that's the kind of fighter Dominic Cruz is. He's extremely cerebral. He definitely fights for your money. Like you saw in that Cody fight, he knew he was down. He started upping the pace, putting himself in more danger. You saw in the Cejudo fight after he got knocked out, he was upset that, they called that fight off.
Sure.
And that it's all good. And I think that what you mentioned there, that he was surprised at those Henry Cejudo kicks. You got to remember, that fight was after Dominic Cruz had taken that second hiatus, or the third hiatus. I don't even know how many there have been now in his career. So I think he was coming back a little slow. That was the first fight, after COVID. So there was a lot of, factors going into that fight. In terms of matchup here, I think that Cruz isn't going to be able to land on Pedro. Pedro just shells up way too much, is pretty hittable there. And I think that Cruz will be able to get off 2-3 punch combinations on Pedro, and hit out at a pivot or an angle, pretty much at will. Not at will, but pretty often, and be able to get away from those hooks and what's coming back from Pedro's side. Yes, Pedro is a great submission grappler. He has excellent scrambles off his back, or once it's going down. But Jimmy Rivera was able to get in on takedown on him. Pedro did use like his leg lock entry to be able to get back up to his feet, but I don't really see the guillotine threat, all those things. I don't think Dominic Cruz is getting caught in any of those things. This is the only fight that I have a bet on right now. It was over 2.5. It was at a crazy -170 number. I bet it up to -200. Maybe even now, maybe a hint of value still, because I just don't see Pedro really finishing Cruz. Cruz has shown a pretty good chin even when he's been connected with, and although Pedro is known for being a good striker and strong, it's usually a nutritional kind of thing with Pedro. He, like even Cody was able to take, a bunch of bombs from him. But Frank, he couldn't put away Frankie Edgar, Jose Aldo. It's just a little bit hard for him to do a one punch kind of knockout. And I think Cruz's legs, and his movement and who he's training with, he's getting a lot of reps with Roman Bravo Young. So, I think Cruz is coming back up, and I think I've said this before, but I think this is going to be a trend that you're going to see maybe in MMA, not as pronounced as other sports, but these guys older a little bit, being able to fight their way back into, maybe not title contention overall, but just be able to win some fights when people kind of like stamp them off, just like the recovery and, a lot of the things, medically that's going on, I think is allowing for these guys, will allow for these guys to fight a little bit later on into their career. And I think Dominic Cruz is a good representation of that, and I kind of like him here at this -105 number. Is trending towards even money, or and trending upwards as well. But I definitely will have some of that decision prop, like you said, and I'll pick Dominic Cruz here to get a second win here and get back on a win streak.
Nice. So we're disagreeing on this one. It'll be fun to see who's right next week.
Cruz, I think, has been using kicks more. So I think you'll see some kicks here. I think he'll mix it up. I think you'll see a lot of new elements from what I'm hearing from Dominic Cruz's game that he's going to mix in with his normal movement and, all those things. So.
Hey, you once told me about Chase Sherman, though, that, once fighters hit a certain age, they can't improve.
That's like a journey. Like, come on, man. You should never even put those two guys in the same.
Dom Cruz and Chase Sherman are the pretty similar skill levels. All right, so moving on, featherweight division, another great prelim fight here. Josh Emmett coming off a 1.5-year layoff almost at the -150 price tag. Dan Ige coming back +130 on a 2-fight losing streak for Dan Ige. No. I made that up.
Yeah. He had it was a very short fight. You shouldn't be to blame there. That Gavin Tucker fight barely took place.
Right. So your turn to start this one off.
Sure. Yeah. So, love this fight. I'm a big fan of 145 division, right? That's the fight that's the weight class I used to fight at, and I got out because you potentially would have to fight guys like Josh Emmett. Where I mean, Josh Emmett, like you said, one of the heaviest hitters you'll see, under 155, probably has ever been in the UFC. I mean, the guy once when he's on, and he's got that fire under him, and he's healthy, just a very dangerous guy. I think a guy that could, I'm not saying he could beat Volkanovski, but you could see him in the title picture in the top 5 to 6 fight here. And I think overall he just a better fighter than Dan Ige. Dan Ige's gotten his UFC career has been kind of more him kind of taking damage and just being there always, and being well rounded overall. But that Chang Sung Jung fight was just a big red flag to me, just overall with kind of how he approached that fight. His grappling game, first of all, I don't know how his wrestling was that weak when he's got all these Russians training at the gym. I don't know what's going on there, but he just didn't look the same to me as that fire that I saw in that Calvin Kattar fight, even or the Edson Barboza fight, for a fight that he won. So just matchup wise, I think on the feet, Emmett here, his punches are just much sharper. He closes them off a lot of times with that deadly left hook. He's got great power in both of his hands. The only concern to me is that Ige probably is going to be chopping at that lead leg, which is the leg that he completely tore apart 18 months ago. But I think if Emmett's even 80% of what he used to be, I think that he's able to land on Ige. Ige is willing to be in that pocket and throw, which is why people love him, which is why he's a fan favorite. He's a super gritty guy, but it's been shown that these guys cannot take the punches that Josh Emmett is putting out there. So I think when they're in the pocket, big advantage to Emmett. I think Emmett, if he wants to take Ige down, if like Ige's pressuring him a lot and he wants to kind of mix it up a little bit, I think he should be able to take down Ige pretty easily. And then physically, clinch wise, I think Emmett, has the advantage where he should be able to push Ige around more. But I am always concerned with like these big leg injuries, the conditioning angle of it. Ige does have very, very good cardio, but I just favor Josh Emmett everywhere. I think if he's okay off this injury, he should be able to land that, land that jab at first, find his range, and then start bombing away with a guy who's willing to do it with you, and probably thinks that, he could probably outpace Emmett, but I think it's going to go bad for him.
Yeah, I'm thinking along the same lines. I mean, this line a week ago was minus 225 Emmett plus 185 Ige, which probably was a bit wide. But now I think the market may be doing a bit of an overcorrection here. I mean, he's basically gone from what 68% down to 60. I mean, that's a huge swing
Good change.
in the span of 1 week. And I feel like a lot of the analysis on this one is based around the Emmett knee injury. And I think a lot of the Ige picks are, thinking that, oh, Emmett's going to be depleted, 36 years old, year and a half, major knee surgery. It's a very real possibility that he is, but I think you need to have a bit more of like it's an assumption that he's going to be depleted or not the same fighter that he was. And I don't think that you can be making a bet based on that assumption at this point. I just don't think there's enough evidence to suggest it. I mean, if the motherfucker could fight for 14 and a half minutes with a torn ACL against a bad dude like Shane Burgos, I mean, this guy clearly has an unbreakable will, insane toughness, and there's a really good chance that he is able to bounce back from this knee surgery completely and be the same fighter that he was a year ago, possibly even better. So I do think that Emmett is the better, more potent boxer here. Ige definitely has a speed advantage, but I think the exchanges are not going to be going Ige's way. Emmett has scored knockdowns on all 6 of his most recent opponents. Even in like the fight that he lost against Stevens, he knocked him down in that fight. And the dude
Not
just has
knocking down Josh Emmett. I don't think so.
the dude. What do you mean?
Oh, you're saying Ige has? Oh no,
No,
excuse me. I
Emmett.
got it back up. I had
Yeah,
it opposite. My bad.
yeah.
Ige gets dropped all the time.
Yeah, that's I said that this week. Ige I think could be on the fragile side. And the dude definitely has incredible will, and it comes back from being hurt. But we did see him hurt a few times, dropped by like a left hook from Barbosa early on in that fight. So I think it's possible that Emmett does drop him in this fight. Also, you got to think about the wrestling. Yeah, I think that Emmett early on in his career was wrestling people. Out wrestled Scott Holtzman in a back and forth dogfight back up at lightweight. Um, and Josh Emmett hitting some takedowns here, getting some top time is possible. I think that Ige is a little bit better of an overall grappler. He has a black belt. I don't think that Emmett does. And we've seen Ige escape bottom position. We've seen him get top position. I think Mirsad Bektik kept him on his back for 3 or 4 minutes. So it's possible that we could see Emmett get some top time here as well. So I think Emmett's got a bit more ways to win the fight. If Ige is winning, it's going to be his typical way of winning, a hustling decision where he likely loses a round and comes back to win the fight. Um, you know, Ozzy likes mentioning this about decision records. If you look at Ige's decision record, he has lost both of his 5-round decisions, but then even the decisions that he's won, he's dropped rounds to Jordan Griffin, to Kevin Aguilar. He had a split decision win over Bektik and Barbosa. So his decisions and 3-round fights are extremely close. He's typically losing one of those rounds. So I think that Emmett is going to be the side here at -150. I think, like I said, the market could be doing a bit of an overcorrection here. So I like Emmett by decision. That's going to take us to the main card. First fight in the main card, stellar pay-per-view main card here. Starting things off in the bantamweight division, we got fan favorite Sean O'Malley as a massive favorite, -300, taking on Rolion Paiva +250. Um, Paiva coming off of that crazy comeback victory against Kyler Phillips. It likely should have been a draw, but we got a little bit lucky with the decision victory there. But the line is pretty much the same, right? Kyler Phillips was near -300, and Paiva is pretty much the same against O'Malley. But I cannot stress enough that O'Malley is so unproven. I mean, the UFC will fool you with the marketing machine that this guy is some legit prospect. But I have yet to see anything that thinks that Sean O'Malley has a chance in the top 15, especially at the bantamweight division. I mean, his best win would be what? Thomas Almeida. And Almeida in that fight threw an insanely little amount of punches. I mean, he was throwing 5, 7, 10 strikes around, just doing absolutely nothing versus Sean O'Malley. And that's his best win, honestly. He's knocked out, Quinones and Eddie Wineland. These guys are just not impressive wins. And now he's fighting a really good fighter in Rolion Paiva, who's been tested at flyweight, who got past his first test at bantamweight, despite it being extremely difficult. But getting back to that Kyler Phillips fight, sure, he got hit a lot early on in that fight. He got rocked several times, was nearly knocked out a few times. But the fact that he didn't get knocked out, the fact that he was able to compose himself, that he had the cardio to come back in rounds 2 and 3, clearly shows that the guy is not fragile. He's not easy to knock out. And even if you beat him within an inch of his life in round 1, he can come back in round 2 and 3 and be right on your ass. I mean, there's a good chance that Paiva lost round 1 10-7 and then bounced back the next round winning 10-8 versus Paiva. So or versus Phillips, excuse me. So I just think that you got to be putting a bet on Paiva here. I think that even if he's going through some adversity early on, eating some early punches, I just think that we're dealing with a better skilled fighter in Rolion Paiva. I know he's just moved up to bantamweight. He's going to be at a bit of a size disadvantage here versus O'Malley. But in terms of skill they've shown in the UFC cage, I am much more impressed with what I've seen from Rolion Paiva. So I'd like Paiva to withstand the early storm here, to make rounds 2 and 3 real close, maybe get some grappling top time. We saw him on top of Kyler Phillips. He looks like a more than competent grappler. And I'm just not a believer in Sean O'Malley at all. I think -300 is nuts. What is his knockout line? I mean, it's probably
+115.
just insane. I mean, Moutinho was a regional fighter brought in for slaughter. And I saw that guy get hurt, get dropped several times in his regional fights. And it took O'Malley 200 punches to the head and 14 minutes to get this guy out of there. I mean, I'm not sold on O'Malley as a finisher. I don't think he's a great power puncher specifically. So give me Paiva here. I mean, I'm picking him straight up. I like the Brazilian, and I really hope he pulls this off.
This is a very interesting fight for me. Just looking, just to kick it off, at the prop side of things, is sometimes I like to look at these, especially with a fighter like Sean O'Malley, who, is billed as a knockout artist. Obviously has had a number of those finishes in the UFC. The total here is set at 2.5, a little juice to the under, but it's telling you, they're telling you that this fight will at least go into the second round. I think it's like, minus 300, minus 250 to start round two. And overall, Paiva, although he did run into a number of punches from Kyler Phillips in those in between moments, when kind of they were just at range, like if you remove the big moments, which is obviously hard to do and, sounds strange, Paiva is in that fight overall. In the grappling, he's pretty solid, I think. Obviously, I don't think that Sean O'Malley's going to be looking for takedowns here, but the thing with Paiva is now without the weight cut down to 125, I think he's a bit more rejuvenated. I think his conditioning is very good. You don't take that kind of punishment in round one against Phillips and come back and do what you do in the next two rounds unless you've got elite conditioning, grinding every day at Alpha Male with those with Uriah Faber and those guys. I think that they should probably be able to craft a good game plan for Paiva. Obviously Sean O'Malley at range, I think with his jab and that lead hand and how he sets up his cross, probably is going to be able to land on Paiva. But Paiva has shown a decent chin overall. I think that he will target that lead leg of O'Malley's. I wouldn't be surprised to see some clinching, and Paiva trying to push O'Malley back and keep him on the back foot, and not be as, intimidated as guys like Thomas Almeida and whatever that other guy's name, the New England guy, were against O'Malley, and really let him get going and growing, as the fight goes on. So Paiva, I think, is able to put O'Malley a little bit on the back foot, maybe land some body shots and, counters. And I think if these guys are slugging in the pocket, Paiva is, I think, much more durable overall. I think that O'Malley probably won't like some of the heat coming back his way. But, I do see some sharp guys loving O'Malley. I don't really see it. I can't see how you can buy into this hype at a 75% win condition here, when the fight, is like 50-50 almost to go the distance. And yeah, I kind of lean Paiva here as well. I'm thinking this line maybe continues to grow, though, because, people see a former flyweight, a guy like Paiva, and they kind of write him off, especially when they're thinking, oh, O'Malley, he's picking his fights, the UFC, they just really, I don't really think the UFC cares all that much, to be honest. Like, there's no way the UFC really thinks that Sean O'Malley's going to be win a title. That'd be extremely surprising to me. But crazier things have happened. But yeah, like you said, the one time you saw O'Malley have any kind of adversity, one time he hurt his leg against Sukinta, and the other time he got his face elbowed in by Marlon Vera. So I think adversity is coming here. We'll see what O'Malley has once it does come, but I do think that Paiva is going to bring a fight here, and I do kind of like him here at this plus. I want over plus 275, and I think we'll get there.
And yeah, O'Malley just does not check leg kicks at all. The guy has still not learned his lesson. It's not really. Moutinho was still chopping away at his legs, and just O'Malley doesn't respect the leg kicks. He doesn't think it's an objective to check them. And if Paiva targets that calf, we know very well what can happen, like the Vera fight. And again, you might as well wait. The O'Malley money probably comes in. The parlays probably come in. Looking at Paiva's Instagram, 28,000 followers. O'Malley has 2 million, so we're clearly dealing with it. We're clearly dealing with a different animal here. So hopefully we maybe even get up to plus 300 on Paiva. But that's going to move us on. Next fight, down to the flyweight division. We have former champion Cody Garbrandt dropping down to flyweight, and he's coming in at the favorite price of minus 135. And Kai Kara-France coming back at plus 115. Fun matchup here.
Interesting fight. Cody Garbrandt's been teasing this to move down to 125 for a long time. I've always been super skeptical of the guy. He does have some good skills. He's very, very quick, has some power in those hands, but moving down to 125, obviously his biggest attribute there, the speed that he brings, is kind of getting sucked out, is going away. But he has fought a murderer's row in the last 5 years, between Dominic Cruz, Pedro, TJ, Sun South Font. And people can look at Kai Kara-France and be like, this guy does not, is nowhere near any of those guys. But how they match up, I think how they're gonna strike is Kai France is going to target that leg. There's no way Cody's leaving this fight without eating a number of calf kicks, and it's all going to be in regards to how healthy is Cody. He's always claimed the all these infections and COVID and kidneys, and this guy has a lot of things going on with him. He's divorced from his wife, just a lot of personal things going
Oh,
wrong with
he
him.
is? I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're divorced now.
And he's got
And
a tattoo of her face on his thigh. That must be hard to deal with.
well, at least she's hot. I hope this.
She's got a twin sister. Maybe he's gonna leave her for the twin.
Maybe that'd be a nice plot twist. But Cody just and now he's over with Mark, or he's still with Mark Henry. I just think overall, Kai France, although he's not he won't impress you all that much. He's just very solid overall. I think how he exchanges in the pocket. He's a very classic striker. I think he's the kind of guy who can possibly frustrate Cody and get the rage Cody, slinging overhands out again. He has maybe shown a little bit of a soft chin, but I think he's gonna stay behind his guard a little bit better. I think he will push the pace of the fight early on, test Cody's cardio, see how he's feeling that flyweight, hit that lead calf, which I don't think Cody's gonna be able to deal with very well, and we'll see how the offense coming out of Cody looks, because I've always been skeptical of him as an elite fighter. I just think that if he could find the right punch on you, he's good. But in that Rob Font fight, which was only 7 months ago, he just looked so timid, never really tried to win the fight overall. He knew once he had to start wrestling that it wasn't going to go well for him. And he kind of shelled up and didn't perform to the best of his ability. I think Kai France is going to be able to bring the right fight out of Cody. I would lean him earlier on as a value side at like plus 135, but I can't bet him here at this pick'em price, or plus 115, I should say. So I'll look for a live opportunity, because I do think Cody, whatever he has, he's going to show you in the first round for sure. And then you'll be able to get probably a plus price on Kai France to come back in those last two.
I believe a lot of the same things Ozzy does about Cody. I mean, if you look at this guy's early fights to the title, you can see that his entire career has been, overrated based on a really easy stretch of fights to get him to the title. A good matchup in Dominic Cruz, and there are still, millions of fans out there that believe, oh, Cody Garbrandt was the best fighter ever for one night, the best fighter in the world for one night only, and then they make up all these excuses. What happened to him? Nothing happened to him. He ran into fighters who knew how to exploit his weaknesses. He wasn't able to learn from his mistakes, and he still really hasn't learned from a lot of them. Still hasn't fixed up a lot of those pocket boxing issues. And now for a guy that's been knocked out several times at 135 is dropping down another 10 pounds. I don't think it's a huge deal for him, because he did weigh, his weight was posted when he fought TJ Dillashaw. He only weighed 141 pounds the day after he weighed in. So he's not
Beautiful,
gaining a
yeah.
lot of weight. So he shouldn't be too, depleted getting down to this weight class. I saw some pictures of him. He looks, a lot leaner. So I think he's going to make the weight and be fine. It's just a matter of how his chin is going to react after those punches start landing. Never been, at this weight class with those punches landing, or he hasn't been since probably his boxing days, 10 years ago. And he was extremely fast at 135. Even if he wasn't, the more skilled fighter, he could still have a speed advantage over a lot of guys at 135. But now 125, everybody's fast. Everyone's a good athlete, and he's going to be running into a bit of a wall with Kai France's speed. And Kai France is just a well-rounded fighter. I think the guy really does everything well. His defensive grappling isn't, my favorite. He definitely struggles with that. But Cody, not known for a top game, not known for, a back take type of guy. He does have some wrestling, but I don't think he's going to have the top game to be able to hold Kai France down. So this is going to be a striking fight. And I like Kai France to, mix up with the leg kicks, land some boxing combinations in the pocket. And I just trust Kai France a lot more at this weight class. I got in a bet on France plus 150 for one unit. I bet it like right after
Nice.
Jose Aldo won last week. And, it's going down a little bit. So happy with that bet. We're just going to see where it goes with, we got the CLV on this one. So I like Kai France to edge a decision here. And, I just think the market could still be overrating Cody Garbrandt. After all these years, after several losses, I mean, he just lost 50-45 to Rob Font, and he's a favorite at a new weight class over a proven, solid, well-rounded fighter in Kai-Kara-France. I think this is another example of Cody being, overrated by the market. One thing, last thing I'll mention that Ozzy mentioned, he is training in New Jersey with Mark Henry, and he's training at Sacramento. So whenever you see a fighter splitting their time between two places, you got to wonder, who's going to be the head coach, who's going to be developing the game plan. You could kind of get a little bit lost in the mix of those two. He could be thinking he is his head coach. I know the game plan. I'll figure it out for myself. But you really need a head coach who can really ground you and really dictate where your training camp goes. That's what I'll say about that. So I like Kai-Kara-France here. Next fight, welterweight division. Santiago Ponzinibbio as the favorite, -130. Jeff Neal coming back +110. Santiago getting some action this week. This fight was a pick'em last week. Obviously, the news around Jeff Neal with the DUI came out. It was on Thanksgiving. He allegedly had, a few drinks, was driving home from his girlfriend's house, got pulled over, and said that he was, barely over the limit. So I don't think it's something to really put a whole lot of stock in. It's a holiday in America, having a few drinks before driving home. I think you can do that 2 weeks before a fight and still be okay. But I think the more so concerning thing with Jeff Neal would be his two most recent fights. I mean, the Wonder Boy fight
For sure.
the Wonder Boy fight isn't exactly an awful sign because it's just a tough stylistic matchup. I think the Magny fight is a fight that he really fucked up. A fight that he could have won. He had advantages to win that fight, and his IQ, his decision making was what lost him that fight. What everybody does against Neil Magny is that they get too close. They initiate, they clinch, they attempt their takedowns, and that's exactly what Neil Magny wants. And as a coach, as a fighter, you have to fucking know that. I mean, everybody does it against Neil Magny, and Jeff Neal was just unable to maintain distance in that fight. He would throw a few strikes in combination, and he would just end up too close to Magny. Magny would tie him up. He'd get him in the clinch. He'd push him against the cage. And every time Jeff Neal was having some success at distance, throwing his southpaw combinations, he would get too close. Magny would tie him up, and then Magny gets the fight into his range. It just showed a real lack of preparation and IQ from Jeff Neal. And I think Jeff Neal's just been kind of he had a really good run early on in his career, was knocking guys out, and I think that Fortis MMA has kind of stalled his development ever since then. He hasn't really gotten much better since then. He hasn't really adapted to fighting at the higher level of competition, and I don't really trust the guy's output. I don't trust his cardio. He had some health issues last year, right, with like some liver problem or something, and it
Kidneys.
seemed, yeah, there you go, and it seemed like he didn't really trust his output too much throughout the Neil Magny fight. But he didn't have 15 minutes worth of striking cardio. Meanwhile, Ponzinibbio just went a full 15 hard minutes against Baeza. High action, back and forth striking fight. Took a lot of damage to his leg, kept fighting. It showed that Santiago Ponzinibbio is still the high-level fighter he was in 2018 before that long layoff. Had that small hiccup versus Jing Liang, but the guy is still an incredibly skilled fighter. Just look at the difference in their Neil Magny fights. Ponzinibbio destroyed Magny, smashed his calf, jabbed him to pieces, knocked him out without much trouble. Jeff Neal, very close decision that he lost. Even if he did have a good argument that he won that fight. So I like Ponzinibbio here. I think the line where it's at now is more accurate, and I like this one to go the distance too. I think this one is going over, so over 2.5 at plus money is not bad.
Did you bet this one at all, or not yet?
No, nothing.
No, nothing. Yeah, I mean, this is a very interesting fight for me. I've always loved Jeff Neal. I always thought, man, this guy, the stuff that he does coming from that left-hand side is pretty unique. That, when he is on, some of those, like the Nico Price fight and the Mike Perry fight specifically, those are great performances by him. I'd love to see him, get back to that. But like you said, like that Neil Magny fight, he definitely didn't have it. I thought he had an okay first round, and then after that, he was just getting stifled, and I think he got frustrated a bit. One thing I did notice that he mentioned that I think is worthy of bringing up is he did say, "Hey, man, like to be honest, like I'm not trying to make excuses, but I didn't really enjoy fighting in the Apex. Like I think he's a guy who maybe feeds off the energy, and I think that's a legitimate thing overall. Obviously, that's something very anecdotal a very small thing, but I think it was interesting because I did kind of see that he didn't really have that fire there. Now Ponzinibbio on the other side, we liked him I think a lot against Baeza. That was an awesome fight there. But some of the stuff that I saw from Ponzinibbio, yes, he overcame adversity. He's getting his leg chopped up. He was eating some big punches, and then was able to build back, start landing his own leg kick. Keep his jab going, which is he's got a great jab and uses it right. As good as a tool is, it's only extend, like you can only, if you throw it out more, that he kind of builds his game off that jab is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, like Jeff Neal's got a good left kick, but he
Yeah.
throws it once around or twice
Yeah,
around.
exactly. So I think that allowed him to build back into that fight. Baeza wasn't really able to parry it that much, but now here he is going against the southpaw, which if you look back historically, I think he fought Zach Cummings, I think a southpaw, but other than that, not too many guys. But I kind of lean a little bit to the Jeff Neal side. And this is a lot of speculation there, but I just feel like some of the reactions to the shots that Baeza was throwing out, I didn't like from Santiago. I think that Neal is a different level of striker than even Baeza is. Baeza kind of he's mostly leg kick based. A lot of those punches that he throws are a little bit more like looping, and whereas Jeff Neal is a lot more direct to the target. Santiago has that kind of like not Dominic Cruz style of striking, but he's kind of like bouncing back and forth in and out. And I think that he's going to be met with some big left hands, especially in the first round from Jeff Neal. The fight is his favorite to go under, and although I think we were mentioning a bunch of stuff, Jeff Neal is super durable, man. Like this guy, you saw that fight against Wonder Boy. He was taking all those shots pretty easily, and the only time I've ever really seen him hurt, apart from the Holland knockout, is when he ate like a headbutt from Nico Price. So I think if Jeff Neal, if he is back, if he did take some time off, which he said he did after the Neal fight, if he is back to the old Jeff Neal, I think that he's a good play here at plus 110 over Santiago. But it's a hard. I'm not making that bet yet. It's a hard pick for me to make as well because I am a big fan of Santiago. But just some of the reactions that I saw from him, I think he's going to be open on that left hand side for Jeff Neal to land often. I think Jeff Neal should be able to neutralize that jab a little bit with his pivots, his footwork, and the way that he enters and gets out of the pocket. But I think it's going to be a close fight overall. I wouldn't be surprised that it'd be in a close decision, like you were mentioning that goes the distance prop, which I don't love betting that here because I do think Jeff Neal could put Santiago out. But yeah, it's a fight that I'm very much looking forward to. I hope that Jeff Neal looks a lot better here. And if it keeps going, if we get to like plus 120, plus 125, I think I'll definitely have to come in here on Jeff Neal. Unfortunately, which because I love Santiago, but I do think that some of the stuff, even though he had a good performance against Baeza is not a top level welterweight, and I think Jeff Neal has the potential to be one. So.
Yeah, a few closing thoughts. I'll say that Ponzinibbio versus Baeza is the best fight all year. My favorite fight. The over 1.5 here is minus 160. That's like an alt over that's available on some books like DraftKings. Minus 160 for this over.
160.
I mean,
I don't see Ponzinibbio finishing Neal. Do you? I don't see that, man.
I'd be surprised. I don't think either is.
Because Baeza took a lot of shots from Ponzinibbio. I don't think he's got that same punching. Even look at all his fights. Like even the Gunnar Nelson KO was like after like a little finger to the eye. He doesn't knock guys out.
No, yeah, you're right. He's not looking for that as an objective. He's more of a jab and a leg kick kind of guy. But the one thing about Neal is I don't think that he cuts off the cage too well. So I don't think that he's going to be knocking him out either. Like when he landed a few punches on Magny, he would let Magny, retreat a little bit, reset the combination, and then he doesn't really build on that offense too much. You know what I mean?
Right, right. But I think
So
also with that southpaw stance, I think that leg kick for Santiago is not going to be there as much. So it's a
it's
very
not.
interesting fight. I like this fight. I like this one.
Plus 150, I think I'll probably end up 1 unit on that because this fight ending by finish 67% of the time, that's not right.
Yeah,
Um, but
I
really
can see
fun
that.
fight. Moving along to the co-main event, we have Amanda Nunes taking on Juliana Pena, women's 135. Obviously Nunes the favorite, minus 1,000 here, Pena plus 600.
It's my turn, right? To start, I'll kick this one off. So, I
Yeah, you
mean,
go.
a fight that Juliana Pena has been clamoring for, which you don't see that much in the women's division, right? Where but this is a different fight coming in because Pena should be the girl that really does want to get in there, get grappling. Her striking though is pretty robotic, but maybe this time in between, to train for a specific opponent, she's been able to improve a little bit. I know she's been training out in Chicago there, where she's been working with her striking, which I think looked like it helped Yair Rodriguez. I was actually impressed by the striking improvements in the boxing of Yair, and from what I understand, he did a lot of his training out in Chicago. So it's been I guess 10 months since we've seen Pena. Feels a lot less time, but yeah, I liked her there against Sarah McMahon. But the thing is with Juliana, she has just like so many lapses in judgment overall, in fights, like getting caught by guillotine by Duran Duran to me. Some of the grappling that happened in the Nico Montano fight, the Sarah McMahon fight, the armbar against Valentina. So I think the best lean here is if you like Pena, is instead of just only betting her money line, maybe try to look at some of this over 1.5. But Amanda Nunes looks like she's coming in for a kill. Like I think Juliana Pena really pissed her off with all this talk. But Amanda has not been down at 135 since when? Since the Jim Rain the randomly fight, which
Duran,
is
yeah.
almost two
2 years.
years to the date. Yep. She needed to go to grappling in that fight, and I think that as the fight goes on, she loses that power, some of the power that she has. So if she does not finish Juliana Pena early and Pena is able to draw out offense from her and whether either absorb it or somehow make it miss, I think that I'm not going to say that Amanda Nunes is in big trouble, but I think that Juliana Pena could potentially work her way back into the fight because I do think she's a better and a stronger grappler than Jermaine Durandamy and Felicia Spencer. I mean, there's not a lot of fights left for Amanda Nunes, and I'm gonna tell you, I don't want to be like, I don't want to not fade her, like have a money line taken when she does lose. So I'm considering this money line price on Pena a little bit, but maybe just looking to have this fight go a little bit later on, because even if Juliana Pena does get grappling success going, whether it be in the first round or late, I think it's like she's not going to just finish Amanda super quickly. I think it could turn into a little bit of a back and forth fight a bit. So I kind of lean for the fight to take place like that. Otherwise, like I can't really tell you too much about how Pena striking is gonna look. I mean, on the feet, Amanda Nunes, she's a freaking powerhouse. She hits harder than any woman that's probably that's ever fought MMA. So Juliana Pena obviously doesn't want to be there, so she's gonna have to muck it up, get Amanda Nunes tired a little bit, and then hopefully look to land some takedowns. But it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard. So, what do you think?
Interesting. I was looking at DraftKings just now, and they for some reason don't even have this fight listed on there. That's weird. Maybe
COVID,
they know maybe they know something we don't.
maybe.
That'd be cool if they just saved us all from this. Honestly, it is an interesting fight to think about from the sense that Pena has lost fights before and come back and won. She lost, I think, round one versus Zingano, round one versus Montano, lost the first 2 rounds versus McMahon, arguably, and then came back and won. So
And did
the
she
one,
win the first round against Valentina? I don't know how they scored that fight, but I don't
no, well, she
remember.
got
No?
submitted in round one, didn't she?
I thought it was round two,
I
isn't it?
think. Well, she took her down and was on her way to winning the round, I think, and then
Right.
I believe got caught in the armbar.
Yeah, that was in
So
round two. So
she,
not sure.
she oh,
Okay.
was really.
Okay, go ahead.
So she is somewhat like resilient. She can withstand some adversity, come back and win. So that is a good sign from what you want to see. I mean, if you were to build an opponent to beat Nunes, you probably would want an opponent that can withstand the early storm, Nunes gas out, and then maybe her take over. If you remember Nunes' last fight at 135, she did seem to gas out in that fight. I
Yeah,
mean,
she
it
looked
was
tired.
the worst fight ever, worst fight, arguably the worst title fight ever. And Nunes, uh, what like it was
She
Nunes
was she was like
Nunes won
she
round
went to
one, and
takedowns.
then
Yeah.
yeah,
She started
Nunes won
taking
round
them
one dominantly. Then all of a sudden, round two, I think Jermaine hit her with a punch, and it kind of looked like Nunes was hurt. Then
out.
Nunes hit a takedown, and then literally the last like 17 or 18 minutes was just all lay and pray. Nunes had no energy to go for a finish, no energy to advance, to land ground and pound. Nothing happened. So it seems like her energy level at 145 is a lot better, and she's willing to chase that finish like she did versus Megan Anderson in round one because she trusts her cardio a little bit more. Now, not having cut the weight in 2 years, COVID has happened. She's had a child. She's had a lot of change in her life. She's probably, gotten used to her weight. And now she's having to cut this big chunk of weight down to 135 again. That is something to consider here. But Pena does struggle to put together a good 15 minutes. If she has come back and won some fights, but she was losing early. She has won some fights early, and she goes on to lose them, like the Jermaine Duraname fight, like the Shevchenko fight. So I mean, the woman really struggles to put together the full 15 minutes. So that's going to be difficult for her to overcome. And I was just watching the Sarah McMahon fight, and round one, Sarah McMahon just bombs her with a straight right hand, and Pena doesn't see it coming at all. And then McMahon hits easy takedowns and is just wiping her out from top position. So, I mean, I really do think Nunes is going to be able to land punches at will on the feet here. And she's likely going to be able to take down Pena and put her on the ground as well. But I think the grappling is probably a harder path for her. I think it opens up more possibilities for Pena to reverse and get in top position. So if I were Nunes, I would keep the fight standing. I would look to keep it entirely striking. And, if the fight goes to the floor, she gets a knockdown, look to let her back up. So I like the over 1.5 here. I think Pena is tough enough to make it past that. And it's sitting at minus 140. That's what I was looking at DraftKings for, trying to see what the odds were there because I mean Nunes just finishing her immediately. I don't think is automatic here. So I'll take over 1.5 as my prediction. I'll go with the Nunes like round three sub as the official pick for whatever it matters. Enough about that fight. Moving on, main event. This is basically interim champ versus undisputed champ. Poirier is the undisputed champ to me. We got Dustin Poirier minus 150, Charles Oliveira plus 130. Elite level lightweight matchup here, and I'll start this one off. I definitely having kind of going back and forth in this one all week, but I initially was leaning Poirier. I'm still leaning Poirier, but I have uncovered a lot more concerns as I've taped this. I don't think you can be confident enough to bet Poirier here. I think that if you're betting a money line, it has to be Oliveira. And as a Poirier fan, as a Poirier picker, I'm very aware of how Oliveira can win this fight. So I'll start by talking about the striking between the two. I think that Poirier definitely the much more comfortable striker. He's much more durable, more comfortable in the boxing combinations. Oliveira has been steadily improving his striking. I think Oliveira is probably the better kicker of the two. You've seen Oliveira get a lot more comfortable over the years with his striking, but he's not proven to the point where he's going to be able to, comfortably stand with Dustin Poirier. It takes an extremely high level, durable striker to be able to stand with Poirier. And I don't think Oliveira is that. So Oliveira might have some brief success with those, those front kicks, those jumping knees. He really does mix up his arsenal well with his strike selection. But anytime the fight is standing for more than 45, 60 seconds, you're going to see Poirier win the exchanges. You're going to start to see him land hard shots. And you saw Oliveira go down from just a few short punches from Michael Chandler in that round one there. So I think there is reason to believe that Oliveira does have a bit of a chin durability issue. And we could see, him get knocked down from some punches here for sure. But obviously the X factor in this fight is Oliveira's grappling. Oliveira, an elite submission artist, most submissions in UFC history. I think has also the most different submissions in UFC history. I mean, the guy has hit arm bars, guillotines, arm triangles, rear naked chokes, leg locks, knee bars, everything. So it really depends on how urgently Oliveira is going to wrestle here because you got to think that Oliveira on top has a good advantage. Obviously, he's going to be putting Poirier in some bad positions, but what I look at for this fight for Poirier is the Khabib fight. So Khabib, obviously, a much more dedicated grappler. He's not one to keep the fight on the feet for long like Oliveira can at times. And he put Poirier down in round one. He got him in some bad positions, but Poirier did survive some really bad spots versus Khabib. He was nearly mounted at one point. Can you mute yourself, Ozzy, for a sec?
Oh, sorry.
Uh, he was nearly mounted by Khabib at one point. He was able to stand up from some takedowns, was able to escape mount once or twice. He was never able to separate from Khabib, which was his problem. He was able to stand up from some positions, but Khabib just has that insane grip on the body lock, and he just never lets go of you. Oliveira, once he gets that takedown of his, he really likes to go for the back take, and if he doesn't get the back take, he really doesn't control people that often. We saw him control Tony Ferguson from top position, from top half, from mount, but typically Oliveira's game is takedown, look for the back take, and if he doesn't get the back take, he really doesn't solidify top position too often. We saw him go for the back take versus Chandler. He eventually lost it. We saw him take down David Tamer. He went for a back take. He wasn't able to get it. So he took down David Tamer in round one. And David Tamer, a Muay Thai based fighter, was able to out scramble Oliveira one time and get back to the feet. So that, I think, is a good advantage for Poirier. If guys like Tamer are able to survive some takedowns to get back up to their feet without getting their back taken, that's a good sign for Dustin Poirier. So one other thing I'll mention for Poirier is he's training a lot with Emmett-Ige. He's training with Movsar Evlev, training with some really high-level guys down at ATT. He's got some incredible training partners to prepare for this matchup. And the biggest concern I saw from Poirier was getting taken down by Dan Hooker in rounds 3, 4, and 5. Got taken down in all three separate of those rounds by Hooker there. So the general thinking is that Poirier should have the cardio advantage, right? He has been around 4 and 5 much more. Poirier or Oliveira has never been in rounds 4 and 5, and Dustin Poirier has won decisions over Max Holloway. He's knocked out Gaethje in the 4th round. He's beat Dan Hooker in the 4th and 5th round. So he definitely has more championship experience. He has that cardio advantage, but you got to think, if Dan Hooker was able to get late takedowns on Dustin Poirier, then it's possible that Oliveira is able to get those late takedowns as well, which does make it very, very close here. So I have concerns for Poirier. I think he's going to get taken down. I think he's going to be put in some bad positions, but I trust him to survive those positions without getting submitted. And I think by round 3, by round 4, we're going to see the gas tank of Oliveira start to deplete. We're going to see Poirier be able to stuff those takedowns easier. And we're going to start to see the damage start to add up for Poirier. And we're likely going to see a finish in the 3rd or 4th round here from Dustin Poirier. But I see some people like in the unders here. I don't know. I think what I saw in that Dan Hooker fight makes me think this fight actually could make it to the decision. Because rounds 1 and 2 of that fight were so high paced that Poirier was a little bit tired by rounds 3 and 4 and 5, and he didn't have quite the gas tank to go for that finish. Even though Dan Hooker was really tired and compromised in front of him, Poirier didn't go for that finish. So we could see something here, a crazy back and forth round in 1 and 2, and then the pace really drops off, and Poirier just kind of controls it for a decision for 3, 4, and 5. So I like Poirier here. It was a bit of a long-winded analysis, but it's an elite level fight. It's number 1 versus number 2. Talking about this fight for a long time is deserving. So I'm interested to hear my man Ozzy's thoughts on it.
Yeah, I love this fight here. I think that, how these guys are going to match up is, Oliveira definitely, I feel still, right now is a bit undervalued. We're seeing some money come in on him here. I was on Michael Chandler just because I thought the power of Chandler would shine through, and, it definitely was early on. But Oliveira definitely impressed me there, and he did dispel some of the, the narrative that, he's like a 1-round guy, or he's like a guy that if he starts smashing them, he's just going to give up. So he definitely got that monkey off his back a little bit, but now he's going up against one of the most battle-tested guys through the crucible of the UFC lightweight division that there's ever been in, Dustin Poirier. Now, just how I see the striking though matchup, I just don't think that Dustin Poirier is actually going to be landing as easily as a lot of people feel on Charles Oliveira. Just because I think Charles Oliveira, the way that Dustin fights, is going to allow for Oliveira to be a little bit more on the front foot, to be a little bit more attacking, whether it be with his kicks, his straight shots, or some of the cleaner boxing that he's shown. Obviously, Dustin is a master defensively. He rolls with shots really well. He's able to turn his shoulders to deflect strikes, as they're coming in. And he is, once he gets like your patterns down, he is a very cerebral fighter that he can adjust very well on the fly. But like you said, that those Dan Hooker takedowns, very concerning. And this is what I'm saying is, I think Oliveira is going to be able to back up Dustin, and if he is backing Dustin up, I think a takedown should come rather easily for him. And then from there, it's a real crapshoot to see if Dustin is going to be able to survive down there. I think that Oliveira is deceptively strong on top as well, especially if he could get to that back position. I think that is going to be bad news for Dustin potentially. And yeah, I just think that early on, Oliveira has success in whether it be grappling or striking. I do think he's going to get this fight to the ground at some point, and we're gonna see if Dustin can hit some of these escapes and maneuvers that I'm sure he is drilling, a lot. But I just think that Dustin makes some mistakes in there more often than a lot of these other top level guys that you really can't make with Charles Oliveira. Michael Chandler was able to get out of that first back take against him, but that guy, I think he has a little bit of a different grappling based game, and I think he's a little bit more comfortable giving up the back positions and stuff like that. So I think basically Oliveira's going to be winning the fight early on. So I think that it's a plus EV play to back him, and I think people are snapping that value up. I don't know. I mean, at plus 130, it feels bad for me to get involved now. I was hoping that more books would be at north of plus 150. But yeah, I think that overall how the fight plays out, Dustin is going to have to build up a little bit more later on. I think when they're at range and boxing, Dustin has shown to be a lot more patient as of late. So I'm very interested to see what his approach is going to be, because if he's slinging combos, these long combination, which he's known for and he enjoys doing, is going to open up the route for that takedown. And you saw that double leg that he shot on Michael Chandler. That looked pretty good. And Oliveira has body lock takedowns as well. He's got a pretty good kick game, which we've seen Dustin at times struggle with. Obviously, the last two McGregor fights, he did well to kick on his in his own right, as well as check a few kicks. But you've seen in a number of Dustin's fights, he goes to the grappling. He looks for some for takedowns in there. So I think his physicality is going to have to shine in the defensive grappling, and I think that on the feet he's going to have to be way more selective than he he has tended to be. So I kind of like Oliveira here at this plus number. I wouldn't be surprised to seeing this continue to nosedive overall. But I do know people that love Dustin Poirier and feel he's the uncrowned champ, and all these things considered. And then just one other thing, third fight this year for Dustin Poirier, third championship, kind of level fight, 5-rounder. So he's been grinding this year. I thought that this fight would take place early next year, but he wanted to get in there again before the year is over. And I don't know if that's the best approach for him, because Oliveira's been preparing for Dustin for a while. Like Oliveira, I think, was expecting Dustin to come out the victor over Conor, and I think he's ready for this opportunity. I think he's got the weight of Brazil on his back, but propelling him forward. And I'll pick him here to keep the lightweight belt. And I wouldn't be surprised to see these guys fight on more than one occasion, though.
And any props interesting you in this one?
I side with you in the thinking that the people that are looking at this under, I don't know if it's a great angle, just because Oliveira, elite level weasel. I mean, did you see that guy after he got dropped by Michael Chandler? That stuff that he was doing on bottom, like on his knees. Yeah, that's insane. So I don't think he's going away easily. Obviously, if you're betting Oliveira, you got to have a shot on that plus 300 submission prop, right? You don't often see it. at that price. And 25% to submit Dustin Poirier, a guy who he'll go for a guillotine himself. And Oliveira's always looking to rack up those submissions and add on to his record that he has in the UFC division. So yeah, I would think if you like Oliveira, you split a little bit between ITD submission and a little more on submission and money line as well. But yeah, that would be it for me. I think this fight, I couldn't play the over or the under here because I just think it's high variant. Any Charles Oliveira fight is very high variance, and because Dustin could catch a knockout early, or do the normal song and dance that Dustin Poirier fights are, it could go late as well. So I think you're setting yourself up for probably pain if you invest too heavily in the under.
Yeah, you mentioned the jumping guillotines. I mean, Dustin really has got to stop doing that. I mean, the fact that he did that versus Khabib, I think that he prepared well for the Khabib fight. He just really felt the pressure of being in Abu Dhabi, felt the heat, felt the Khabib fans, and made a lot of mental mistakes in there. But I think he's really grown from that. I think he's, gotten used to that big fight feel over the past few fights, and I think he's going to be a little bit better prepared to make the right in-fight decisions to defend.
I don't
the
know
takedowns
if you see those embeddeds or whatever countdowns. He's training that he's locking up anaconda choke after anaconda choke. So I don't know.
I mean, Pettis did submit Oliveira, and I mean, Oliveira getting those subs on Felder and not finishing. I mean, is still like a mystery to this day how he kind
I
of
think if
managed.
he gets Dustin in those spots, I think it is a wrap.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the mind that if you like Oliveira, I think he's going to be finishing in 1, 2, or 3 here. So, DraftKings has these props. Oliveira to
Mhm.
win and under. It's like a parlay. Oliveira to
Mhm.
win and under 3.5 at plus 240. I think that's a little bit better way to play him. Because I would think if it gets into the fourth and fifth round, it really does favor Poirier at that
Plus
point.
two
So
what? Plus two what?
plus 240 for Oliveira to win and under 3.5 rounds. So
Why wouldn't you just play Oliveira ITD? It's like the same thing.
what is that?
It's
What
like
is that line?
210, 200, 210.
Yeah, but I mean, the chance he finishes in 4-5. I guess it seems extremely low. Yeah, plus 215. That probably would be better. Um, extremely amazing fight though, and I can't wait for this one.
Should be a good
You know,
one.
I'm a little worried as a Dustin Poirier fan. Gotta admit. So that's gonna do it for this podcast. We're gonna end this one right now because it's been an hour and 45 minutes. But
Oof.
like I said, we had I claim well. We won't say O'Malley is elite, but besides that, we have 5 elite fights in this card with Munoz, Cruz, Emmett-Ige, Cachoeira-Robertson, Cody, Jeff, and Ponzinibbio in the main event. So we had some amazing fights. We had to talk about them for a long time. So thank you all for listening. We will see you all before the next and final UFC card of 2021. And hope you all win some money on these pay-per-view fights. Peace out, fellas.
Later.